It is about 1:24 in the afternoon, and I have a quiet house. This house is never quiet. This house is always with one child, two child, maybe my wife and I are home, sometimes alone, depends on the situation. But it's always some activity going on in this house. This house is quiet, and because my oldest son, obviously in school, 3rd grade, my wife is working today, a long day today, her long shift, and then my youngest son is back in preschool. Well, I say back because, and I explained to you guys a couple episodes back about how preschool, the first school he went into didn't really work out. The first couple of days, we took him out, we transferred to another school, and now that's took effect this week. And I also revealed on that same podcast that the big change on that one would be, like, instead of him going to pre-PK from 8:30 to 11:30 in the morning, he'd be going from 1 to 4 in the afternoon. So it was just, obviously to me, strange, but it's definitely something where he's a lot more receptive to, which, of course, he is there now. We also can, the cool thing, too, about this school, like I said, I think I also said this on the last episode, that I explained this, was that the cool thing about this is that I can actually watch him, on the screen. Like, in other words, they have cameras set up where you can see his classroom, what he's doing, just to check in. For my wife, personally, it's a big thing for her because it calms her anxieties now, knowing how he's doing okay, because obviously this transition has been very challenging for all of us, honestly. But at the same time, him being able to, us being able to do this now, and again, he's still been some challenges a little bit. Like last 2 times he's gone, yesterday and today. He cried. I took him today. Actually, he cried a little bit on the way out, almost cried a little on the way out, but he ultimately went with the teacher, and so far he's okay. He's on the play. I'm actually watching the screen right now. I can see the screen right now. He's in the playground right now with his classmates. So that's pretty cool. But other than that, that's been the big challenge here, really, with that. But because of that now I'm able to have a little more time to record. So, like, I don't get my son from school, my oldest son, till 3:00. His school's literally across the street from my house. So I have about a 2-hour gap to do whatever, record podcasts, go have dinner, or lunch rather, go maybe see a friend, maybe visit my mom, see how she's doing, things of nature. So it does open up a lot of things for me and for my wife too when she's home with the kids the rest of the week. So looking forward to that, honestly. Anyway, so I was thinking this week, because this week is September now. We're closing in on the fall, which I can't wait, because as I got older, I really don't like the summer anymore. I'm just not a summer guy anymore. Especially living in Florida, it's too damn hot. And, like, it's freaking, like, it's like suffocating here. I mean, not so much the heat, it's the humidity that really bothers me, everything else. But we're closing on the fall. And I just realized this week that it's been 20 years since I saw Michael Jackson in concert, his last shows, before he passed away 8 years later. It's also 20 years since 9/11. And both things correlate for me, because both events happened, especially Michael's last show was literally 12 hours before 9/11 happened, pretty much in the same spot in New York City, in Madison Square Garden. And I've shared a story before in the past about seeing him in concert. He had 2 shows. The 30th anniversary concert he had at the Garden. He had 2 shows. He did a show September 7th on a Friday, and then he had his last show on September 10th on a Monday. And I had tickets for the 7th show. I went to the first show. Obviously for me, life-changing. He's my favorite artist of all time. It wasn't the greatest concert because there's a lot of technical issues, and the show started an hour late, and obviously, and remember, they're also recording this show for a TV special, which will air on TV on CBS in that following November, which also was part of his the album release for Invincible at the time, was part of the packaging of that. But I went to the first show with my ex-girlfriend at the time, and it was a life-changing night for me, obviously, because Michael is my favorite. So, and it's also rare to see him in concert, because at that time he had not done any shows on U.S. soil at that point in 12 years. since the bad tour. So, and he had not toured the States since. So it was a life-changing show for me personally. It was a great experience too. I made a lot of friends through that concert that I still to this day maintain, which is fantastic. I was 21 years old at the time. Now I'm 41, and we still to this day share stories and discuss it. Maybe some of my friends come on the podcast in the future, but it was a really cool time. Innocent time to be alive. I stayed that weekend, left on Sunday. I actually had thought about staying for the second show on the 10th. I thought about staying for the show on the 10th. And decided against it because I had to work, and at the time, which I obviously I don't regret. I kind of regret it. I don't regret because of the events that happens in the coming days. But I decided to go because being responsible, had to work, and I didn't have time off, and tickets were a little bit pricey from what out of my range to also that I was seeing out there at the time. So I did not do it. So I left on that Sunday. A lot of my friends. Stayed behind. Some of my friends I met also stayed behind for the second show. A lot of fans who came from out overseas stayed for the second show. And then, of course, 9/11 happens. 9/11 happens on Tuesday morning. So the last show was Monday night on the 10th of September at the Garden. And then the attacks on the World Trade Center happens literally 12 hours later. I always make this comment about how it's kind of strange how, you go from singing Heal the World and whatnot on Monday night, and make the world a better place and whatnot, and world peace and stuff of that nature. And then literally 12 hours later, you have their country under attack, the first attack on American soil in well over 60 years at that point. It was very strange parallels. You know what I'm saying? So going through that, it's just one of those things where it's shocking. I can't believe it's been 20 years since that. I can't believe that. If you were born around that time, you're now an adult. We're more removed from that. I'm actually almost equally as removed from 9/11 as I am weekly from being born. In other words, 20 years between that and where I'm now. I mean, my life was 21 years between the time I was born and 9/11. 9/11 is just one of those things where, I remember when it happened too. I got the phone call. I remember where I was too. I was at home. That morning, I remember asking, first off, trying to get home with my friends who were in New York and see if they were, my family too, because I have family in New York as well too. I'm born there, and I remember asking around, hey, should I get hold of people on the phone? And phones were busy, could get through anybody. And I remember being so paranoid to the point where, even I was so worried about, okay, well, maybe there's bombs on my car. I remember looking on my car, making sure there's no bombs there. I remember going to pick my little brother from school also too, because they let out school at that point here in Florida. But I remember being so scared and so just completely shell shocked with the whole thing, and thinking I was literally there, not even 36 hours ago, and not just in New York. I was in the same freaking city, in the city, just a few miles from where the buildings were. I tell a story. My friend Jenny Winings, who's been on this podcast a couple times. She also a fellow MJ fan too. She went to both shows. She went to the first show. Ended up going back to New York for the second show because she ended up getting tickets for the second show. Flew back to New York. She actually worked with Delta at the time, so it was easier to fly back and forth at the time. She went to the second show. She was the very last flight that left New York on that Tuesday morning. I think it was 7 or 8 o'clock in the morning. The last flight that left, one of the last flights that left that region before the attacks. I remember trying to get a hold of her too, especially because I knew she went back to see the concert, but I knew she was leaving the next morning. And she said I got a hold of, I think, late that day, I think, also too on the internet, probably on AIM or whatever the hell it was at the time we were using. And it was crazy because she got home and whatnot. But, I remember taking home my friends. I know one of my friends I went to the concert with also too. She stayed for the second show too. Couldn't get a hold of her at all. And supposedly she had a really bad experience in those few days. Apparently, I haven't got a hold of her since. Well, I got a hold of her, I think, a little bit after that, but then ever since I haven't been able to talk to her. But I remember her telling me that she had a really bad experience in those couple of days after, not just with the Trade Center, but also with people and whatnot. She was a very bad situation she was in. 9/11 is just one of those things where, we were united as a country, but it was also weird because, we were kind of in this space too where it was almost anti everybody else, and and I spoke about this on the podcast a couple episodes back too about how Afghanistan, and looking at Afghanistan and how my political behavior and how I looked at the world back then is a lot different. Is different than it is now. I was much more as a conservative. I was much more, narrow-minded. I looked at things one way, and I obviously trusted that what we were doing was the best thing. 9/11, I think in a lot of ways set out a seed for where we are today as well too, and the way we view the world. At least a lot of us view the world, good or bad. So, but I can't believe it's been 20 years since then. I'm just blessed to have family who luckily was not, obviously weren't harmed doing it in the city at the time. So thank God for that. Friends, my friends ended up being okay. Whenever I think about the Michael Jackson concert, it always ties on 9/11. I can't separate the two, obviously. So whenever this time of year comes up and we think about 9/11, I always think about the MJ concert. It's just something I can't shake off. It's just a large part of what I went through and who really, just my experience. I'm lucky. I'm blessed in hindsight that I didn't stay for the second show, which I really wanted to stay for the second show because obviously it was a great time. But at the same time, when they say things out for a reason, this is what they mean. So yeah, it's hard to separate the two. I will say for the record, and Michael's kindness shone through in this time too, because he obviously him doing a concert in New York, and he was stuck as well too. Everybody was stuck there, no matter who you were, no matter how rich you were, you planes weren't leaving. So obviously he had a hotel booked for himself and whatever in his entourage around that time, and because of the situation, him and his family, because his whole family was there for the concerts too, because it wasn't just him, it was just the Jackson the brothers and all the sisters were there and parents, all that. The whole family decided to leave to drive to California together instead. What I do know, and this never got reported in the media, this is what I learned about media manipulation and whatnot, is that a bunch of fans who were stuck from Europe were able to stay in his suite while he was gone on his dime until planes were clear to travel. And I know this is true because two of my friends actually were part of that group that were able to stay at that hotel that Michael paid for on his own dime, and he kept paying for it until they were free to leave, free to go travel once they opened planes up again, which took a few days actually. But that's one of the things that never got reported also in the media. But this is true because I know this because my people. It's good to know that I have connections and people who did tell me this, and so the kind that my Michael Jackson that no one really will ever know unless you listen to this podcast or people try to share that story. But it's hard to separate Michael and 9/11 because it's so tied together to everything that I went through in that time, because it was such a beautiful time to be there, not just also to see the concert, but also just to be there in that environment. Also my hometown in New York. It was my first time back in that city in a long time. And then you had 9/11 happen, so yeah. Strange. This is strange. It's weird how to tie that into, but 20 years already. I can't believe that. It's been 20 years. Unbelievable.